Hey, it's Dougie Wood, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 tips on how you can transform your intranet to make it look absolutely fantastic using completely out of the box features. I'm going to be walking you through some new features that have been released to SharePoint, which is going to make your life so much easier when it comes to designing a new SharePoint intranet. So, one of my favorites is banner sections. So banner sections is a new feature that's been released to SharePoint in the past few months that can really help the design and the look and feel of a SharePoint homepage. This area here is an example of a banner section. In fact, the red colouring that is over the top of this banner isn't applied to the actual image, it's actually part of the SharePoint site, and it's pulling from part of the colour palette, as in the site branding, to apply that over the top of the image that we have selected. So let's take a look at how do we add a banner section to a page. Well, the first thing we would need to do is click on edit mode. Now, edit mode will then put the page into edit mode, and we can tell it's in edit mode because the button no longer says edit, it says republish. We can also hover over different what we call web parts on the page, and little boxes appear to show that essentially we're in edit mode and things can be moved around. Now, I'm actually just going to delete this banner, just basically so we can recreate it and show you how. So say, for example, we didn't have any banner area at all. What we need to do is click on this section button across the top up here, and then we would select on the full width section. And then what you can see is because it's full width as it's going left to right all the way across the page, we only have a few options of what we can select on this particular banner web part. So if we select on banner, that will then give us this full space. And I say this red is actually applied via the color palette on the page and not actually the web part itself. We can then configure it however we like by using the edit properties button here. And there's a couple of different options. We can either go with like an author, which will kind of show the profile picture of the author on the right hand side. We can go with a fade, so it applies the kind of primary color that is on the site over the top of the image. We've got image and title, we've got plain, we've got color block, and we've got overlap. So there's multiple different styles we've got here. I'm going to go with fade, and then I'll just put into the title, say this, welcome to our intranet. And then we can specify a background image by clicking on browse images, either upload our own images, or we can use the Microsoft stock image library to browse for a particular image. So say, for example, we were looking for people in an office. We can then select a picture, click on insert, and that will then insert the image onto the banner. The next thing we're going to look at is background that are applied to specific sections on a site. So the sections are essentially what content goes inside of. It's what the web parts go inside of. And sections always go from left to right, and they fill up the full page, but you can have different columns within a section. You can then apply either default Microsoft stock backgrounds or even upload your own background to change the color and the overall appearance of the SharePoint Intranet homepage. To do this is really simple. Again, we need to go into edit mode on our site, and you can see this page actually uses multiple sections. We've got the kind of full banner section across the top up here. We've then got this section which we've got news inside of, this section which we've got navigation items inside of, actually a section here we don't even need, so we can remove that, and then a section down here which has got more useful links, upcoming events, things like that. Now if we select the section, and you can see we've selected it because it's got these lines now that's around it, we click on edit properties, you'll see down here we've got some default background ideas. Now the top 4 will be based on the color palette. So now because we're using this kind of dark navy blue color, it will provide that as an option, a kind of a lighter neutral version of that color, some darker variations. So we've got a black color here, and then we've got the primary color, which is way too bright for this particular option. So in this case, I've selected this one here. You can see though there's a whole different range of section backgrounds that Microsoft offer to you completely for free down here that you can have a little play around with. Although this is not really working for this particular layout, I think if we was to change that web part, and rather than having the kind of the background as an outline, if we make that a fill color, that's starting to pop off the page a little bit better, and we're starting to see things a little bit better when we're using that type of very light background. But actually, this kind of multicolored, blurred background is very popular. It's very in fashion, I suppose to say, in the design world at the moment. So that's why you've got a couple of different variations of that. And they do look quite good if you can pair it with the right kind of content, the right kind of color palette. But as I said before, we can also add our own background. So if you wanted to own your own imagery in the background, something like that, you can change those easily yourself. But what I would say is it is really useful to use these background colors, especially if you use completely different background colors for the different sections you have on the page, so that visually when a user is scrolling through the site, without them realizing that they understand subliminally that the content on the page is changing. So for example, as I scroll through here, my brain's saying, okay, well, this is news. Now we're going on to this next bit. This is obviously a different type of content. It's actually navigational type of content. And then we're scrolling down, and then it's changing again. It's going back to more useful kind of information, links, events, things like that. Spacing. Now, anyone who's watched my YouTube videos in the past before will know that I get a little bit picky about the spacing, as in how the web parts are aligning on the page, how much space there is between sections, and things like that. So what you can do is you can add what they call the space web part onto a page to control how much space there is between web parts. So let's take a look at that. Now, you might not have even noticed when I was scrolling down this page before, but there is a spacer web part on here. Can you tell where it is? Well, actually, it's here. So you can't actually see it because all it's doing is providing a bit of space. But actually, the default spacing between this web part where the kind of section ended and this next section started was too close in my opinion, so I chose to add a spacer. So if I go into edit mode, you'll see what I mean. So here is the spacer web part. Now, if I was to remove it and completely delete it and then publish the page, you'll see what I mean. Now I just felt like that was too close. I felt like that was too close. There is a little bit of space here, but to me, that just felt like it was too close. I wanted to try and provide a bit of space in between this. So all I did to add it was click on edit the page, scroll down to where I want to add it, and you can see wherever you hover once you're in edit mode, it will show you where you can add web parts to the page. So I wanted to add it here. I click on this and then I look for the spacer web part. I add the spacer web part, and now the way that you control the size, if you go into edit properties, you'll notice there's nothing in here. The way that you actually control it is by just simply clicking on this here and then dragging it. Now, I must admit, I don't like the way that this is configured because it does jump around. And if you're trying to get alignment, say for example, using multiple spaces, like say for example, if I wanted to, I could be providing a spacer between each one of these web parts. But it gets a very fiddly because it jumps around the pixels. And I suppose if I had my wish, Microsoft would actually add into the configurations the ability just to enter manually, type in what pixel space I want. But actually the way it works is you drag it, find the space that you want. Once you're happy with it, you then click on republish, and then the space will then appear. So now it looks much better. It's a bit cleaner. It's got a bit more space now underneath that web part. Image navigation. Now, there's loads of different ways that you can navigate on a SharePoint site, from a mega menu drop down to useful links. There's so many different types of ways that we can navigate. However, one way that I've noticed a lot of people don't necessarily use all that often, so I'm going to show you an example, is using images to navigate users. So it's a very visual way of doing it. It's a fantastic way of adding in branded imagery to get that look and feel that you're trying to achieve onto a site, which is where maybe you would have only just had some clickable sort of buttons or useful links type web parts previously before. So let's take a look at an example of this. Now, this is actually this area here that I'm referring to. So we've got multiple web parts on the page that we've uploaded our own imagery into. Again, we could use Microsoft stock image library if we wanted to, but because we're trying to make this look and feel very much like a specific organization's brand, we've used the images from their public website in order to get the look and feel of that brand to come through on their SharePoint page. Now, within reason, we can have as many of these as we like, but if I'm totally honest, I think I would max out at 6. tell a lie, the most I've ever seen is probably 9 actually used in this kind of way. But any more than that, it's going to completely take over the user experience, because if you had more than 9, it will be then more than just what can fit onto one particular screen. So again, to add this, really simple, go into edit mode, and you can see I'm using the image web part. So to add image web part is really simple. Click on the plus, type in image, select the image web part. We can select either an uploaded image that we've got, say for example like this. That will then add that to the page. Then we can add more configurations. Click on the properties button here, and you can provide the hyperlink of where it goes to, and you can add the text over the top. So maybe this is something like company benefits, and then we can provide a link. And now this link can be either anything internal, like a SharePoint page, a SharePoint site, a SharePoint document or folder, or it could be anything external. So it could be linking off to a third-party website. It doesn't matter. As long as you've got a URL that starts with HTTPS, you can click this and link it to anything you want to. You can also add a little SharePoint image caption if you wanted to. So if you wanted to put something under here, you can do. And then you can also provide a bit of kind of alternative text as an accessibility point of view. So if anyone's using this with a tool that's reading the page, then that tool will know what that image is and be able to read it out to someone who maybe has got a visual impairment. Site branding. Now, this is really exciting, because if you've watched my videos before, when we've talked about things like color palettes, branding, and getting your kind of branded colors into SharePoint, that's required a lot of manual steps. It's required PowerShell and things like that. Now you don't need that at all. There is a tool that's built into SharePoint which will allow you to apply your custom branded colors to SharePoint. So let's take a look. Now, this couldn't be any easier. If you scroll to the very top of your SharePoint site and click on the cog, you'll notice that there's a site branding area here, and in brackets it says new. This is a new feature, and as I say, it makes life so much easier, as it means people that aren't necessarily techie, don't know coding and programming and PowerShell and things like that, they can create their own site branding. So by clicking on that, that's going to open up a new page, which is basically the site branding page, which will allow you to customize not only colors, but font packages and themes for your SharePoint site. So all I need to do is click on the new theme option. And then what I really like about this is it will even show you a little bit of a preview of what this is going to look like. So what your kind of user interface elements will look like as you're applying the color. So say, for example, we can apply a primary color here. So I can say add new color. We can even select from this kind of color chart like this. If you don't necessarily have a branded color, but you just want to pick one from here, you can do. Or if you wanted to select a particular color, so I know a particular blue color off the top of my head, so I select that, click on save, and then my primary color you can see has then changed. So you can see these buttons have changed. I can flip that backwards and forwards and just see what that looks like by adding different colors. Then we can have our text color. So for this, might choose a grey color, just see what that looks like. So there you go, that's what this kind of grey is going to look like with the blue. And then with the background color, typically a lot of the time it might be white, or you might choose just to make it slightly just off white. So something like this sometimes looks quite nice as well, quite clean on the page. So once we've done that, we can also check the accessibility checker. I mean, this is flagging, to be fair, that this is not too happy with a few things. So you can have a little look at what that is just to make sure you're happy with that. Then you've got an accent color. So this color is used every so often, basically, to complement your other brand colors. So I might just choose that blue color and then click on next. Then it's going to say what is going to be the name. So I'm going to... Typically, what I would usually recommend is that you would give it your kind of company name or something like that, just so you know what it is and it stands out. It's not just called Theme 1 sort of thing. But I'm just going to call this my grey and blue and click on save. Now that I've got that created, all I need to do is select it here, and that's then automatically applied that to my SharePoint site. So all I need to do is go back onto the home page now. And I'm going to select the cog across the top right hand corner once it loads. And all I need to do is then click on change the look, theme, and then where I've got grey and blue, select that, and you can see then all the colours will automatically change to that new colour palette. All I would need to do is click on save, and that will then apply that to my site for me. I just wanted to pause here for a second to ask a quick favour from you. If you're enjoying this video, please do subscribe to my channel now. It's a free way that you can say thank you to me, and I really, really appreciate it. The next tip I have when it comes to designing your SharePoint homepage is to look at using the stock icons when it comes to some of the web parts that have the option of choosing little thumbnail icons. Now, most web parts that allow icons will allow you to upload your own icons as well. So if you wanted to essentially upload your own branded stock icons, that's completely fine. But if you don't necessarily have them, rather than going through the time and expense of creating some, why not use the Microsoft stock icons? So a little example of this is if I scroll down to the bottom of the page, you can see here this useful links web part where we've got things like booking a holiday, submit expenses, things like that. These are actually all Microsoft stock icons. They're not custom ones that I've got from a third-party website or anything like that. They are built into SharePoint. So let's take a little look at how we can edit these. Again, we need to be in edit mode. We need to scroll down to the bottom of the page. We need to either add a new link or edit an existing link. So let's edit this HR one. We click on the edit button next to it. And you can see there's thumbnail options. We've got auto selected. Now auto selected basically will just pull through the thumbnail of whatever this hyperlink is. So because this is linking to a SharePoint page, it's pulling through the SharePoint icon. Whereas if it was a Word document or a PowerPoint, it would pull through the relevant product icon onto here. We've got custom image, which is basically allowing me to upload my own custom icons. So I say, if you do have your own custom icons, feel free, go nuts, upload whatever you want to upload. However, if you don't have any, or if you're wanting to sort of have a more SharePoint feel to your SharePoint page, click on library and then click on change, and then you can change the icon. Now, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different icons which are built into SharePoint. Now, I must admit, one thing I wish was better was this search for icons. It is a bit rubbish, to be honest, the search box up here, because I think unless you know the exact name of the icon, it doesn't do very well at finding things in my personal experience. But have a go, see what you can do. It doesn't harm, though, just have a flick through and find something that you think looks relevant to what it is that you're doing. So, for example, I'm looking for something which looks like people. Now, I could search people, and it probably will find some stuff. There we go, it's found a few things. I can select my icon, click on select, and then that's changed it here on my useful links web part. All I now need to do for everyone else to see that is click on the republish button across the top right hand corner of the page, and then everyone else will see that icon. But as I say, go through them, find what's in there, take a mental note of the types of icons which are in there. The really good thing about this is actually there's icons for almost anything, but they are all consistent, which means they all have a very similar look and feel. So you don't have to worry too much about matching them up. They fit perfectly. And in fact, actually, most of the icons actually have like a solid version and a kind of outline version. So for example, like that book holiday, if I just go back in here and edit that particular button, go into change. If I was to look for, I'm hoping plain, might find that, but you can see there's an outline version of it and there's a solid version of it. Now, what I would recommend from a design perspective is pick one or the other. Either have all of your icons using the outline or all of them looking solid, because if you click on solid, you can see some of these are like more like outlined ones. That one just looks a bit odd now, standing out as a solid fill. But if all of these were solid fill type of icons, it would look way more consistent and much more appealing on the eye. So when you're designing your SharePoint Intranet homepage, often a key consideration of this is news and how you're bringing news to people. A lot of the time people assume that with SharePoint that it's just like one news feed and it can't be bespoke or customized or targeted in any way. That's not true. You can come up with different categories of news and then even what we call audience target that So every user that goes onto your SharePoint page sees a different flavor of the news based on certain topics or groupings that they are part of. So here's a fantastic example. If I scroll down a little bit, you can see we actually have 3 different types of news here. We have all news, which is relevant to absolutely everybody, so everybody would see this news. We have volunteer news, which is then specific to people that are interested in kind of volunteering and maybe different kind of areas of the world that it's filtered to. And then my region is only going to show content based on the office location that I'm based in. So because I'm based in the UK, I could be pinned to, say, the London office. So all of the news articles here would then filter by news that have been tagged with London as a location. So I only see in my region news which is relevant to me. Whereas, say, for example, if I was in the US office and it's in New York, I could come onto this page and it would then update and show me all the New York related news articles. Other types of bespoke news. So again, on here, we've got the latest news. So this is relevant to absolutely everybody in the carousel. But we have a sort of categorized CEO updates. So this is only going to be pulling through news which is from the CEO. So it's a type of news category. And again, this could be filtered down as well. So it might be we tag it with different departments, and then depending on which department you're part of, that filters down and only shows you kind of updates from the CEO which are relevant to your particular department. The next design tip relates to hero layers. Now, what I mean by this is the hero web part. Now, a lot of people are familiar with the hero web part because as part of the default site template, you get the kind of 5 large tiles, which is the hero web part at the very top of a SharePoint site. What not a lot of people are familiar with is that actually you can edit that web part and put it into a layered mode, which means you get this kind of like image on the left, text on the right, and then vice versa all the way down the page. And there's a couple of ways that we can use this. It's the same functionality, but just displayed in a different way for either navigational purposes or kind of like a banner type of approach. So let's take a look at those different options. So the first way that we're using this on this particular layout, if I scroll down, is like this, where we've got images on the left, text on the right. We can provide a title as well as a label, if you like to call it that, across the top. We can then apply a unique URL hyperlink, and we can actually do that in 2 places. We can have this whole button, as in the image, the text, everything, linking to one place, and then this learn more linking somewhere else if we wanted to, or we can get them to link to 2 specific things. So that way you can kind of double up, almost like 2 birds with 1 stone. You could have 2 navigational links in here if you wanted to. And as we scroll down the page, you can see that the images are kind of sort of reversed. So now the image is on the right-hand side, then it's back on the left-hand side, then it's on the right-hand side again, and the left-hand side, and so on. So this is a fantastic way to use it for navigating. It provides a really simplistic, easy navigational structure that people can follow. You could bounce this to another page if you wanted to, which had this same web part on it. So again, you're kind of using that approach of like choosing your own path. So if you remember as a child, you might have had those books where you could choose your own ending. So you could go to page 7 to cross a bridge, or go to page 10 to climb the mountain, whatever it is. And then eventually by choosing those series of different options, you get to your final result. You can use this web part in the same way. So I've seen this used in the past before where maybe these are departments. So it's like HR, finance, IT. Then when you click on them, it then has, say, like policies, knowledge base, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you can drill through it in that way to get to the content at the very end of that pathway. Another way we can use exactly the same web part, but in a slightly different context, is like this. So this is just one layer. So actually, when we go into editing the page and we edit the web part, we can choose how many layers we want. Now, when I was saying before, everyone's kind of familiar with the hero web part. So if you've got multiple layers, I mean, to be honest, this isn't a great example because it doesn't have many tiles in it. But if I was to change this to, say, tiles and then 5 tiles, you can see everyone's kind of familiar with that hero tile approach. It's on the top of every default SharePoint page. But if I go back to layers, you can see now I could have it like that approach on that previous site if I wanted to. But I think it was really effective if you use it as a layer with one layer like this. Again, we've got a nice big image, which is obvious to people when they load the page, a label, bit of text, and a link of where it's navigating you to. If you need any help on a SharePoint project, I do offer professional services. You can get in contact with me via a contact form that's linked in the description below, but also in my YouTube channel homepage, there'll be a link in the bio section. I look forward to hearing from you. The next thing you might want to factor in when you're building out a SharePoint site or an intranet homepage is the ability to convey information via charts, as in graphs, bar charts, pie charts, things like that. Now, you can embed Power BI if you wanted to. So if you're already quite advanced with creating dashboards and reports and things like that, there is a Power BI web part on SharePoint you can embed things into. However, if you're not necessarily a data analyst and you're whizzy with Power BI, you can also use what they call quick charts to present that same or more basic version of that data into a SharePoint page. So let's dive in and have a look. So going onto this site here, let's say, for example, we wanted to add a couple of charts to convey some key information. We can go into edit mode. And then what I would typically do is maybe give it its own section. So I'll add a new section onto here, and let's go with 2 columns. And then we're going to add the quick chart web part. So we just type in quick chart like so, and it adds it to the page. Maybe we're going to say new volunteers. So we can see by month how many new volunteers that we've had. So we can click on edit properties, and you can see it is very simplistic. There's only 2 different layouts. We've either got column or we've got pie chart. Now, if I went for the column, the next thing I can do is specify where the data is coming from. So I can either specify the data from a SharePoint list or library, or I can enter the data manually. Now, it is called quick chart for a reason. It is very quick. It's very simple. So don't be too worried about this. We provide a label. So maybe let's say it'll be January. And we'll say we've had 23 new people. In February, we've had 55 new people. And in March, we've had, say, 76 new people. So you can see here it displayed like that. Now, again, I can easily duplicate that and drag it over here. And then maybe, let's say, we'll have a pie chart, and then we will have types of donations, and then we might have, say, for example, digital donations is maybe, say, 70%. We had event donations from events is maybe 20%, and then I don't know, dinner evenings 10%, something like that. So there we go. So we've got some information now that's displayed directly on our SharePoint site. For everyone to see that, all we need to do is click on the republish button, click on republish, and then everyone can see that information. It's really simple and easy to add and simple to update going forward. And then the very final tip when it comes to designing a SharePoint site is go and look for examples. I've got plenty of, in fact, I've got a full playlist of SharePoint examples on my SharePoint YouTube channel, but I would also advocate that you go and look at the site templates that Microsoft give you completely for free. When you go to create a SharePoint site, you'll notice as you click on create site, there's loads of different templates in here, but just go in and have a little look, see what there is. In fact, I would recommend for the intranet type of feel, look at the human resources one. You don't take it with a pinch of salt. It doesn't have to be used for human resources, but there's some great layouts here, some fantastic ways that web parts have been displayed on the page. Further down, we've got organizational home. This is much more like a sort of intranet homepage, so you can get some ideas again on here. And because everything's out of the box SharePoint, you can mix and match, take some ideas from this. Maybe you like this particular section on the department site, look at how it's built using a text web part, quick links web part, and then rebuild that on one of your other SharePoint pages. But I would say just go in and have a little look. You might learn some new things and get some new ideas, and that really is what it's all about.